Welcome to the Hero Podcast by heroes behind the line.
Officers respond to the shooting, 14300 East Alameda Avenue.
The World Trade Center, tower number 1 is on fire. The whole outside of the building, it was just a huge explosion.
We got on scene, found the condition to be have agonal respiration. I was planning on the 168.
All units mayday to clear. Clear all traffic. 11 on the east side.
Somebody is still shooting inside theater number 9 for an employee.
514, I need the ambulance to export stable. I need the ambulance to export stable.
This is Be the Hero Podcast. Welcome everyone to the Be the Hero Podcast. Today we got a special guest with us, Donnie Keirnan. He's in the house. Well, he's actually live on Zoom, but you know the same thing.
What's up, man?
How's it going, Donnie? Haven't seen you since what, 2010, 2011? It's been quite a while.
Yeah, man. It's been a while. Yeah, I think it was 9, 10, because I was in Iraq in 11. So, yeah, it's probably maybe 10, 11. Yeah, something like that.
Awesome, man. So glad to finally be able to catch up with you. It's been so many years, so much stuff has happened over the past few years. I'm just so glad you were able to make it on the show and we can actually talk about some of that stuff. So let's go ahead and get to it and tell the folks who you are.
So, my name's Donnie Keirnan, 8-year U.S. Army vet, served in the intelligence corps, signals intelligence analyst. Did one tour overseas towards the end of the Iraqi war conflict, well, at least the part 2 of it. So that's it on that end of it. I got a wife, 3 kids, one of them biological, 2 are step twin boys. And then I got a little girl who's a killer softball player. So I've been having fun with that, coaching her, doing that. And then throughout the years, I've dabbled in strength athletics, did some strongman, powerlifting, that kind of stuff, just to try to keep my sanity. So that's pretty much it.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. All right, so when we served in the military back in the day, I'm sure a lot of the folks here probably are curious about what it is that you did. Even if we got to give them the Reader's Digest version, the watered down kind of stuff. Go ahead and give them a little idea of what you did.
Signals analyst, signals intelligence analyst. Sorry. So pretty much the terms that we can say legally without being hit up with that TS clearance stuff. Pretty much analyzing enemy communications to try to thwart attacks and to roll up bad guys. So,
and you deployed at that one point, right?
Yep. 2011, I was overseas towards the end of the Iraqi conflict to support the multinational forces Iraq in ISSA Air Base. That's where I was at. Yeah, in Anbar province.
Yeah, there's got to be a lot of similarities. With this podcast, what we were trying to get for is, a lot of the first responders are going through a lot of difficult times and a lot of difficult things that they're having to deal with as far as with PTSD. I'm sure even with some of your experience with being deployed, seeing some of the stuff you've seen over there, do you have any experience with any of the PTSD or maybe a readjustment when you came back?
Yeah. I dealt with a lot of readjustment issues when I came back to civilian life, with dealing with, my marriage, just basic day-to-day life stuff when I was on coming back from a high awareness environment into, regular life that doesn't require so much vigilance,
Mm-hmm. So what was life like on deployment?
So, as an intel analyst, I'm not going to sit here and go and say I had it the roughest. The reality is the military wrapped up a lot of money and training into to me. So unfortunately, how they value lives in the military is how much money they have wrapped up in you for the most part. So I wasn't out on mission every day. I was at a compound inside of a compound that required extra clearance to even get into. So as far as being on deployment wise in an active combat zone, not Kuwait or cutter or anything like that. I was relatively safe, given everybody else. Now, with that said, you still had incoming indirect fire, and you still were in a hot combat zone where the enemy wanted to kill you if you had an American flag on your shoulder, no matter what. So we dealt with that, and then the biggest thing I dealt with was we dealt with friendly forces casualties. We had to write up reports and had to try to figure out how we can keep that from happening. And I saw vivid images of 18, 19-year-old kids that had a mortar fall on their lap in the middle of the night while they're sleeping. That really, I'll try to keep my language down here, but really messed me up. Being a 30-year-old or 29 at the time, and having a good view of what life was, and past the 10 feet tall and bulletproof phase, you really feel for this kid who never even had a chance to live life, and had no say in it. So that stuff really messed me up more than anything. You can compartmentalize a lot of stuff about combat, but when you're trying to look at kids that never got a chance to live life, that were put into a situation that were maybe a year ago were in high school, and now he's picking up body parts of him in a combat zone in the middle of the desert. It got to me. So
yeah. So once you got back from serving overseas and you came back on stateside, how did you deal with some of that stuff? Because I know some of those things, we don't deal with them the proper way. And I know some people kind of go down that dark path. Did you go down a dark path, or did you kind of get help as far as trying to deal with those effects?
So I guess I never really was a substance abuser. When I was younger, I drank, but it wasn't to the level of being dangerous. So at that time, like I said, when I deployed, I was 29, and I didn't really have any of that stuff. No hard drugs like that. So when I came back, I had just gotten married before I left. I got married 3 months before I left. So, I was trying to make sure that I could still, be a good husband. I had to come back and be a provider again, back into the real world where you're not dealing with, combat pay and like that. So I didn't handle it well. I didn't do anything. I just compartmentalized it. It obviously affected all kinds of parts of my life. My civilian life, I stopped cutting my hair. I stopped shaving. Yeah, I stopped shaving. I stopped doing basic human things to make sure you're assimilating properly. And then, I really didn't seek help until after I became a father. Mm-hmm. And I have a really good story. I know we got time to talk about it. So you want me to talk about like the story of what got me into? Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not getting ahead of myself, because I could tell you the story that got me into treatment.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm looking for. I want to see kind of how you made that turn.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that was a good story. So I went back to college when I got out of the military, and I met a guy there through the Student Veterans Association who was in his 60s, and he was a Vietnam veteran, Purple Heart, got pretty jacked up over there, came back on a stretcher, and he came back and then lived his life, went in the business world, brought back a Vietnamese wife, and had a kid, and he retired, and he became a Catholic priest. No, what was he? No, he was a father. So I don't know exactly what denomination he was, but and he did a lot of veteran support stuff through his ministries and this kind of stuff. And I respected him because of what he had done in his life, and he was a very non-judgmental religious person. I have a lot of issues with judgmental religious people, but he was very non-judgmental, and just kind of took me under his wing and said, "Hey, man, I want to help you out. I've been in your shoes." And then after about a year, of that, he sat me down, and I know exactly where it was. It was at a Panera Bread right here in Clearwater. I can tell you the seat I was in, the time frame it was very, very impactful on me. And he saw what was going on, and he implored me to go get help. And then I kind of did the whole, yeah, sure, man, whatever. And then he told me a story about when he got back, he got pretty jacked up, and he saw a lot of things, did a lot of things that he didn't want to actually deal with. So he didn't deal with it. He drank. He was wrapped up in his business world. He got a really good job doing sales, making good money. And then he retired in his early 60s or late 50s, early 60s. And then all that time that he didn't have to think about stuff, now he had. And it started to mess with him. And he started to realize how crappy of a father he was, how crappy of a husband he was. And he really had a lot of remorse. And he went and got help at 65 years old. Mm-hmm. And saw a counselor and started, trying to repent almost on his ways. And he told me, and this might even make me tear up. He told me straight up, he's like, I shouldn't be married right now. My daughter shouldn't talk to me right now. Mm-hmm. It's like, I treated them absolutely horrible. They shouldn't associate with me, but they do. I'm very fortunate. He's like, most guys don't get that. They lose their families. Yeah. And my daughter was like 6 months old. And I'm like, damn, I can't do that. Mm-hmm. I can't lose my family. I can't lose my daughter, this kind of stuff. So there was a counselor at the vet center, which is a very, if you guys haven't heard of it, it's a very good resource that the VA provides for combat veterans and combat veterans only. And I know this doesn't work for the first responder world, but for anybody who's a former combat veteran or a combat veteran that's now military or first responder, if you can find a vet center around you, they're funded by the VA. It's 100% free to the veteran, but the records cannot be accessed by the VA without a subpoena. Mm-hmm. So that was huge to me because the VA couldn't get a hold of my mental health records and use things against me for my claim or for anything else. They have to have literally a judge sign off on a subpoena to get to your records, or you could voluntarily hand them to them, but they can't come and look at them just because they want to. That was huge for me because I don't trust it. I still don't trust the VA. I didn't trust the VA, and I didn't want them to have access to my mental health records. Went and saw the counselor I first time met him. He was a early 60-year-old New York Italian guy that was probably 5'6", $130 soaking wet. And he walks in and sees me, and keep in mind, I'm 6 foot, 320 pounds. And he looks at me and like, he just, for some reason though, he wasn't intimidated and he didn't push too hard. We spent probably 2 or 3 weeks talking about the weather, like anything else besides what was going on in my mind. And he didn't push for anything. And then one day we were talking, and I just started opening up a little bit. He and I went through a lot in 5 years, like verbal altercations back and forth, where this angry 320-pound man was in this guy's face, saying stuff, and he didn't back down. He was very confident, and he kept me in check. And what's funny is I think I helped keep him in check a little bit sometimes too. It was a really, really good relationship.
Now, this is somebody that was a therapist. He was a licensed therapist, or?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, he was a licensed therapist. He worked with only veterans. Was not a veteran himself. His uncle was killed in Vietnam, but he was not a veteran. But he started his career in mental health at the vet center in New York 30 years previous to this, and spent his entire career dealing with nothing but combat veterans.
Now, have you ever dealt with any therapist or anybody that deals in that field that's not a veteran previously? Someone that because this person, obviously you felt some common ground with him to be talking to him for that length of period, I would feel.
Oh yeah. He retired right after COVID happened, and I still haven't got over that. It's been 2 years. I still have yet to find a therapist that I've connected with since. I've tried. It was a special connection, and I don't know why, because we were oil and water on paper, but for some reason You know, I trusted him. I told him there's only one other person on this planet that knows more about me than him, and that's my current wife. Mm-hmm. He knows he knows where all the bodies are buried. Mm-hmm. You know what they say. So I opened up to him about everything, and I think that's what made it such a good relationship. Is because I could speak about anything, no matter what, how bad, how horrible of a person it made me. I could say it, and it did. I didn't have to worry about any kind of repercussions or judgment.
How did it feel to get some of that stuff off your chest?
It saved my life, Chuck. I'm gonna be very honest with you. Like, I can go through and give you guys detailed plans about how I planned on taking my life to make it look like an accident, so that my daughter would get my life insurance policy.
But I mean, just being able to reach out to somebody and have that connection with a therapist, I mean, it obviously, like I said on our previous show, it changed you for the better. I mean, I knew you were going through some dark stuff back then, but I mean, to look at you now, you're a whole different person now, and you've done some amazing things in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I honestly attribute the therapy for the reason I'm still above ground right now. And that's not even a hyperbole. That's not like over exaggeration. It is because I was heading down the path of no return on that end. Because I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't have any coping mechanisms for what I was feeling. And of course, there's a stereotype for guys with beards and tattoos and lifters and stuff, that we have to be tough, angry people. We don't deal with our problems. We punch people, we punch holes in walls. We destroy things. And that wasn't me. I've never been that way. You've known me for a while. I've never been someone who's been overly angry or, like that, but I didn't know how to handle shit. And this was, the stereotype was big guy gets angry, big guy punches wall or punches thing or something, or gets, yelling and stuff. And I didn't know how to deal with it. So I didn't do that because I didn't like that. It wasn't me, but I didn't know how to get it out. So it just sat in me and festered. And I can tell you, one time I was sitting right here in Tampa Bay area. There's this really nice place called Safety Harbor. It's a nice neighborhood right on the water. I'm sitting at this park right on the bay, and I'm sitting to myself, like, I'm going over the scenarios of how I could make my demise look like an accident. And I'm like, man, maybe I could just make it look like I fell in the water and the current took me away. And then I'm like, damn, I've been a strong swimmer my whole life. People wouldn't believe that. Like there was these things I'm just going through my mind of how I could do it. Because I knew if I did it blatantly, it would affect not only the monetary effect, but it would affect, people, my family. Whenever someone commits suicide, I was like, damn, why? What could I have done? This kind of stuff like that. When in reality, probably could have done nothing. But if someone accidentally falls into a fucking body of water and drowns, nobody goes, man, I wish I would have helped them swim better. Nobody says that. So, yeah. To answer your question, the therapy, yeah, 100% was it. I didn't take any medications. I refused medications. They tried to give me medication at the VA, and I just pretended I was taking it and didn't take it because it's not me. Most of the time it didn't help. But according to the VA, if you're not taking medication, then you don't have a problem. So I had to fake it. And for like 2 or 3 years, pretending I was taking this pill that I had like freaking like bottles and bottles of it just saved up. I finally just threw them away recently. I just kept prescribing them. And every time I'd go in there and I'd have problems, the only thing that the psychiatrist would say is, well, we can up the dose.
That's the unfortunate thing. A lot of times the VA does that.
Yeah. Just up the dose. Fine. I didn't even argue. I'm like, I'm not taking it anyways. You can dose it whatever you want it.
Yeah, that's kind of been always my thoughts on medication is, I don't like the feelings that it gives me after the fact. I'd rather just go and work out and try and clear my head a different way. So I want to kind of pivot to a different topic, something a little bit more recent. Your experience and everything you have with Strongman, because that was something I knew when we first met, you were just dabbling your toe into it, I think, back then. And that's something I've seen over the years. You've progressed greatly in that. I mean, look at the size of you now. You weren't that big when I met you a long time ago. So.
No. I was big, but not this big. Well, as you know, man, I was always, even when I was in the military, I was 220, 230, 240. Even towards the end of my career, I was like 250 or 260. I was always a bigger guy. Always got shit for it. You remember that, because I never passed their height and weight standards and stuff. But even in basic training, I was 210, at 6 foot. And their maximum for their height and weight was like 190. That's the max you can be in regulations at 6 foot. And I was 30 pounds over that at my lowest adult weight. So I never was a smaller person. I never fit into that scenario. So when I found Strongman accidentally, just from friends of friends, that I was looking for something that would excite me because I was being bored with regular gym training. And the masochistic side of me loved Strongman because it was brutal on the body, and it made me feel like I'm doing something that a very small percentage of the population could even hope to do. So whether they wanted to or not, in my opinion, it's like, yeah, I'm lifting a 360-pound freaking ball of concrete. We'll see anybody else do that, that kind of stuff. So got into that, and it was very therapeutic. It had its purpose. Whenever I would have my symptoms of depression or anxiety, this was my way of beating it out of me without, drinking or doing drugs or, getting into legal trouble. So it was good in that aspect of it. And I got far because of it's almost a self-hatred just kept fueling me to move on. Now, genetically, I was predispositioned to have, to build muscle quickly. So I put on muscle fast. I went from like 260 to 290 within a year, got over 300, and I was just eating everything I could find, training hard. I did well. I didn't do as well as I'd like to. There's guys that made it a lot further than I did. But I suffered a lot of injuries just because I was being stupid and not training smart, just training hard. Which ended up getting me into the career I'm in now because of all that stuff. But then I switched into powerlifting, and I did win a national championship for powerlifting in 2016 for my age and weight. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, that's something like I got a gold medal that's hanging in my daughter's room, and no matter what, man, I can always say I got that at some point. I showed up, and I was the best person that showed up that day. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a cool part of my life. It's got me a lot of cool places, a lot of cool people I've met that have been lifelong friends. And just like I said, I've done superhuman-ish things that most people will never be able to do. I've squatted 750 pounds. I've bench pressed 460. I've deadlifted cars. I've done some really wild stuff. So.
And how do you think your fitness now plays a role in your mental health?
It still has the ability to calm me, which is what I use now. I'm long past my career, my competitive career. My body is broken down. I'm actually going to an appointment in a week and a half to have my knee looked at for potential knee replacement. So it's my body's failed me, but the ability and the knowledge that I have that's built up, it allows me to, when I'm dealing with any issues, which by the way, I deal with very few issues these days. I still have it. I just know how to cope with my PTSDs and stuff like that. But it allows me to go and just release energy properly without harming my body, like with drugs, alcohol, that kind of stuff, or any other self-deprecating methods of coping that veterans tend to gravitate to instead of the proper channels. So I think that was something that, because even before I got in the military, I was always in a training and lifting weights, and I was always just since I've been 21 years old, just been really enamored with the physical capabilities of the body, that it kept me from going off that, because I knew if I started drinking heavily and doing drugs, it would deter me. It would take away my ability to be strong and athletic and stuff. So I'm like, I was depressed, but not depressed enough to destroy my physicality. I could destroy my brain all day. Didn't care about that, but I didn't want to lose my ability to do crazy stuff like the stuff I was doing. So yeah. So it still is a factor this day, even though I'm no longer lifting as heavy as I used to, for a purpose. So.
You're the owner of the Strength and Performance Institute in Clearwater, Florida.
Yeah, that's my my gym, my facility that I train people out of.
Why'd you start that institute?
Well, it's funny. I got into training people almost accidentally. I had built up this knowledge and this passion for strength training and learning how the body works, the kinesiology aspect of the body mechanics, how to properly squat without hurting yourself and maximizing your ability to move weight, this kind of stuff. So I got a degree in business and marketing, which I did for a while. I was a marketing director for a law firm here, and I was good at it. I just didn't like sitting in an office all day. And so I parted ways with them, which I'm still friends with the senior partner of that firm. He and I are close. We just parted ways before it became an issue. And then I went out on my own and I was doing marketing on my own, not liking it, but it was my skill set. That's what I went to school for. So I'm like, yeah, cool. And then before I happened to get my personal training certificate just for my own knowledge base. I just wanted to go through a certificate and learn new things through the International Sports Science Association. So I got that certificate. And then business took a dump on me one year, bad. And I was dating a woman at the time because I got divorced. We didn't mention that, but you know that I got divorced. Unfortunately, it was statistic of the military system there on divorce. And I was dating a woman who was pretty athletic, and I trained her to be a pretty good powerlifter. The first meet she did, she broke state records, and she was really strong. And then some people go, "Well, do you train people?" And then I'm looking around, I'm like, "Oh man, business is sucking these days." I'm like, "Yeah, I do." I just literally started training people just out of necessity. And then once I started doing it, I realized, oh, this is what I want to do. This is my passion. This is where I want to be, watching people grow from my knowledge base and my motivation. So I started training people in other people's gyms, just learning, failing, learning. And then in February of 2020, the gym that I was subleasing said, "Hey, we're not redoing our lease in April, or in April. You got to go find another place." So I said, "Okay." And then March of 2020 happens, and everything gets shut down. So I said, I talked to my wife, my now wife, and I said, "All right, let's do it. Let's just screw it." So I started the Strength Performance Institute in the middle of a global shutdown for industries. And technically, when I opened, we weren't even allowed to be training people. I was, but we weren't legally allowed to. And it just grew from there. I took a chance in the middle of an unprecedented time that could have really went bad or didn't. So we're 2.5 years into that, growing. I'm looking for a bigger location right now. I got a trainer that I work with who's incredible. She's the opposite of me. She's a 130-pound, 5'4" woman, a little pretty girl that's better than this face right here. So helps with marketing, and we have dueling personalities, so they're not conflicting, but they work both ends of the spectrum. The business is growing, and it's affording me things to do, like coach my daughter for softball and do other things that I wouldn't be able to do so much if I worked a 9-to-5 job or some other type of industry. So yeah, happy as hell to be doing it. I love what I do. I dive into it every day. Enjoy the clients I work with. Enjoy watching them grow and succeed. So yeah, it's great.
Awesome. What's a good tip you could give to any first responder out there that's maybe listening to the show that's kind of interested in getting back into a health and wellness and a fitness program, especially with I know a lot of us, we want to lift weights, we want to get big. What's the one thing you would kind of recommend to them?
Well, the biggest thing is especially if you're coming from not a very big knowledge background, if you're an amateur to any kind of fitness. And I know a lot of first responders, military, police, they have a basic level of, okay, I've done physical fitness, but you weren't really taught it. You were told to do it. So maybe you don't retain the information that you were given. So the biggest thing is finding out something that works for you. I despise people who say, here's this cool program. It worked for me. You need to do it. And that fails so often because everybody has individual likes, things they love to do, things they love to eat, what they're willing to do, what they're not willing to do. Everybody has a line of stuff like, stuff that I did when I was competing, most people weren't willing to go to the gym for 3 hours a day and beat the crap out of themselves and then go home and recover and, eat big as I did and as much as I did. People are just not willing to do that. You got to understand that they're not willing to do that. So you can't tell them to do that because they're going to put them in a situation where, one, they either have to lie to you and do it, or they're just not going to do it, or lie to you and not do it, or just not do it. So what I tell people is, like, when you get into a situation, figure out something you like. Most grown people know what foods are good to eat and bad for the most part on a general scale. Most people know that certain exercises are good for you, certain not. So certain people love to do more cardiovascular stuff. All right, cool. At that point, we can work on fitting in exercises that work around whatever limitations you have or that kind of stuff. Some people love to just lift weights. I'm one of those guys. I just love to lift weights. So you can fit in weight training that provides a cardiovascular aspect as well. And then you can also fit in cardiovascular style training that adds a muscle building aspect as well. So you can do both things on both spectrums. But if I tell somebody who loves to run that they're going to stop running and they're only going to lift weights, they're not going to comply to it. And vice versa. If I tell somebody like, all right, I love lifting weights, like, nope, you're doing nothing but treadmill 5 days a week. They're not going to
work out too well.
It's not going to work out. They're going to lie to you at best, or they're just going to completely stop talking to you. So these type of people that when they're led like that, it's not good. There's a guy named Stan Efferding, which I follow very well. They called him the world's strongest bodybuilder at one time because he was in bodybuilder ripped shape, and he was still squatting over 800 pounds, deadlifting almost 9. This crazy stuff he did. And I took a seminar of his down in South Florida. And the thing that stuck out to me was, he said, the science is in compliance. He's like, you can have the greatest program ever, but if somebody refuses to comply to that program for whatever reason, it's worth less than the piece of paper that it's written on. So you have to figure out something that resonates with them and then go from there. So the best thing I can say for most people when they're looking to find some aspect of fitness is figure out what you enjoy to do and then expand upon from there. There's all kinds of different exercises, sports, and stuff that you can play that will improve your physical fitness. Go there, start there. And then if you start growing a love for it, then you'll expand into other things. But to get you past that first couple months of, I don't want to exercise because I hate exercise, do something you love to do.
Donnie, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show and talking to us too, giving your personal experience of everything with PTSD and what you kind of gone through. So I do greatly appreciate it.
Well, man, glad to be here. I've always, you were one of my probably top 5 people I served with that I enjoyed. There's a lot of people from that unit that I did not enjoy. You were one of the people that I enjoyed being around.
You must have had a lot of people you didn't enjoy then.
I've been waiting for Travis to say something this whole time.
No, Chuck's a great guy. He and I used to joke back and forth, and I can appreciate that, little ribbings. It's always been that way. And then as we get older, we get like, all right, we're a little less younger now. We can just be cool. That's how it always is with that kind of stuff. So yeah, I enjoyed.
We used to beat butt heads back then. I know we did.
Oh, we had fun though, man.
Well, I found it pretty funny because he said, that at some point in time he just, he stopped cutting his hair. Well, Chuck did too. It just doesn't grow back. So, and here we are.
That was the stress of actually being with Donnie back in the day.
I still have some left up here. It's not as good as it used to be, but it's still there. It's way more than Chuck's. So
yeah.
And I'll tell you, and so something else I kind of I was picking up, first of all, like you said, thanks for coming on, buddy, because a great story. I was in the infantry. It's cool that y'all weren't, we won't hold it against you, but so as veterans, we always razz each other. That's just how it is. But, if you guys don't know, because they can't see you like we can right now, I mean, you're a pretty large man. I mean, you're picking, at least 100 pounds up, just kidding. You talked about, you're lifting 400 something, squatting this. And it's great to know that a guy with your, physical well-being can say that I had a mental well-being issue that needed to be addressed, and that's something super cool because everybody thinks that you've got to be super strong and I'm the biggest guy here in the room and I don't need any help. That's baloney, so everybody needs help from time to time. Yours may be different than mine or his or whoever. That's kind of something I picked up on. I'm just glad to actually be able to talk to somebody in your, physical stature and say, hey, look, I had a problem. It was okay to ask for help. because so many first responders out here won't ask because they think they got to be the biggest guy there or just live this life in this terrible way like you had for a while. So appreciate you, honestly sharing that. It makes it really easy to let these other people know it's okay.
Yeah, I tried my best. I right now try my best at any time that I'm like that. I make sure that I let people know that I had a problem. I'm very vocal about this stuff because I want the other big guy in the room to go, oh, well, shit, if that dude can do it, I can't. I've had a few conversations with people via Instagram where I'll put out posts, stuff like that combat veterans will privately message me, hey, man, I appreciate you doing that. I think I'm going to go get some help. And that's why I do it. That's why I put myself out there, because if one or two people do that, and everybody, if there are more people like us that could do this and affect one or two people, then we're going to have a lot less people committing suicide.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you talked about the stigma, and the stigma is the worst, so the more we talk about it, more we let people know it's okay, the less that stigma, stays around. And that's the biggest thing. So that's kind of what this podcast is all about, just talking about stuff and just meeting everyday people. You're a military veteran. Of course, Chuck and I am too, then moving into the first responder spectrum, we always have so much issues with everybody thinks they're going to lose their job and this, that, and the other. But like you said, confidentiality wise, Arkansas specifically has confidentiality laws that protect first responders. That side of things. So come out and talk, ask about it. If you have questions, call us.
Yeah, and be sure to follow us on Facebook. You can also reach us at heroesbehindtheline.com. Please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a 5-star rating. And be sure to comment on things you'd like to hear in the future so we can continue to spread the message. And always, remember, you are never alone. From us at Be the Hero Podcast and Heroes Behind the Line.
Thank you to all the first responders. Stay safe out there and be the hero.